You're listening the Virtual CISO podcast, providing the best insight on information security and security IT advice to business leaders everywhere.
So you mentioned the audit, but you don't necessarily have to undergo an audit to participate in TISAX. So let's talk about that. There are different assessment levels in v6. I didn't see anything change, but maybe you did. And at the same time, we talk about whether there were changes or not. Can you briefly touch on the difference between the different assessment levels?
Sure. Generally speaking, we have 3 assessment levels in TISAX defined. 2 of them are more important, one maybe not so important, but I will explain it. So they are numbered from 1 to 3. So AL1 is the basic level. So you just do your self-evaluation, answering the questions within the vCISO, giving your idea of how you implemented it, and that's it. There is nobody checking it, nobody verifying that you entered correct things. It's just a pure self-assessment. So basically, this is what you do when you start with TISAX, or you're along the way when you want to check, hey, where I am in my process. But on the other hand, this is also the starting point for AL2 and AL3 assessments as well. And for the so-called simplified group assessment, it could also be interesting to have a closer look at AL1 assessments. Then after the pure self-assessment, the AL1, we have AL2, which is primarily a plausibility check. So the customer or auditee, he fills in the vCISO, but not only with his explanation, but also he has to provide the documentation of his information security management system. He has to provide documents, records, evidences that what he said he would be doing, he is doing. Then he's compiling a good package for the auditor for review. And then the auditor will just take this package and review it for plausibility. So is what is written plausible? Is it somehow in line with the evidences that the customer provided? And is the self-evaluation or the evaluation of the process maturity level also in line with all those things? And this is what the auditor is doing. He's not talking and examining all the things by himself. He's relying on what the auditee provides as evidences and information. The only thing that will happen is there will be some kind of a short interview with the responsible for information security to clarify open questions that the auditor might have, but there will be no interview. So it's really not so easy to compile everything that an auditor can go through it all alone and find all the things that he needs. And then we have the AL3 assessment, which is then, I would say, a normal audit like we know it from ISO 27K or any other. So the auditor goes on site, talks to the people, makes his notes, takes any, selects evidences, samples, and then he's doing everything on site. So that's what he's doing. He's interviewing the people, he's looking for evidences. That's maybe the easiest part of the assessment then, or the easiest assessment level, because the auditor will ask you for what he's looking for. And maybe something, I'm not sure if it's really a new thing, but there is also the AL 2.5 in the participant handbook. And AL 2.5 might be a good option for companies that are not so experienced with assessments, because what is done with an AL 2.5, you don't have to compile everything and send it to the auditor, but the auditor will do online sessions with the customer, asking him the questions like he would do on site, but only on a remote basis. So the amount of time you invest in the audit itself, it might be a little bit longer, but you don't need that much time for preparation. So if you don't know how to prepare a good set of documents and evidences, AL 2.5 might be something interesting to look at as a customer.
Yep. Yeah, and 2.5 was in the 5.1 as well. It was one of those ones that always confused me a little bit until you kind of dug into it a little bit. It actually makes, I think you're right. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of organizations that are a little uncomfortable knowing exactly, what does this mean and what should I provide? because when you're having that conversation with the assessor, you have that ability to have a bit of give and take to get that clarification.
Right.
One quick question for you. In terms of, in ISO 27001, we have a registrar. What is the appropriate name for, the assessor in the TISAX?